Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Islanders. We hope you enjoy this edition.
Hello, you're watching Labor Vision, the at-home edition. I'm your host, Erica Hammond, joined by my co-host, Guillotte from the Rhode Island AFL-CIO. And today we are joined by Desiree Leclerc, the president of the Coalition of Labor Union Women RI chapter. Autumn is also a member of the Coalition of Labor Union Women Rhode Island chapter, and I am also a member and the secretary of the Rhode Island chapter. So I'm really excited to talk about this segment, talk about some of the great work that CLUW has done in the past, is planning on doing in the future, and figure out how we can get some more members involved in the organization. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both you, Erica and Autumn, and I've enjoyed working with you on our multiple CLUW projects. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. All right, so let's just jump in. I know that we've had you on, Desiree, before to talk about the Coalition of Labor Union Women, but for those who have never seen any of those segments or has done any work with CLUW, can you tell us a little bit about what CLUW is? I know it's both national and they have state chapters, but tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so the National CLUW organization was formed in March of 1974, and it was based on really a convening of ununionized women in Chicago, Illinois. There were about 3,000 women who convened. And it was a call for the fact that women make up a large part of the labor movement, and also just labor in general, right? As we look at what's happened during the pandemic, which people probably feel like I'm a broken record if they hear me at any meetings. There were 2.2 million women who left the labor movement during the pandemic, and some of them lost childcare, some of them left the workforce completely, and many of them are trying to return to work now. CLUW was initially created so that women had a voice in the labor movement, to help them, especially when there was opportunities to organize in industries where it might have been in the past predominantly men, like manufacturing, like office work, things like that. As they moved into becoming more female driven, there was more of a need to have a coalition to represent women. The state chapter, this iteration, was really formed in 2014 by my predecessor, Maureen Martin, who was also the secretary treasurer for a number of years here in Rhode Island. And, that chapter is, we sit on the AFL executive board. We're happy to have a seat there where we're able to help influence conversations around women's rights and women in the labor movement specifically. So I know that's kind of a truncated answer, but I hope that gives you a little bit of a background.
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, what is the importance then of having a CLUW chapter in each state?
So yeah, so last time I checked, there were women in every state, and because of that, and again, like I said, we make up a large majority of the workforce now, right? And we saw that when we left, when I myself am a single mother, and I had to leave a lot of my work during the 16 weeks that I didn't have childcare. But we also see that in as we have conversations going on in the care economy, the infrastructure bills that are coming down the line through the Biden White House, women make up a lot of the things that we rely on a regular basis. We have UFCW members here in Rhode Island, and they're working in, retail food outlets and locations. And a lot of those workers are women, right? We also have childcare providers through 1199 SEIU. We also have a lot of nursing home workers and hospital workers through the Teamsters and UNAP. But on top of that, we also have women working in the trades. We have women working in a number of industries, construction. We have women working in, even in the state level, we represent, right. We work with SEIU 580. They
Mhm.
represent the social workers, things like that. So there is a number of industries and places in the state of Rhode Island specifically that represent women, that have women, and especially women in the labor force, in the labor community. I think Rhode Island, everybody always says like Rhode Island is such a small ecosystem, but you take that small ecosystem and you multiply it around the country, and you can see, I mean, there's care economy in every state, and there are women working in retail facilities, in fast food places, in the trades around the country. And I think personally, when we start looking at, I know the AFL is pushing their Climate Jobs Rhode Island, that is a place where women can make some real headway as far as good, solid family supporting careers. And I look at that and say like, well, how can CLUW help some of this new infrastructure economy that's coming down the line? Not just here in Rhode Island, but in other states.
Yeah. And I just want to piggyback that too quick. Something I noticed is that with the national CLUW, there's so many campaigns and issues that we can work on together, and things that are issues that are coming down the line at the national level. But also it's so important state to state. There's so many different things that happen in Rhode Island that may not be of interest to people specifically in Connecticut or New York, for those specific things, if there's something else really pressing that they're focusing on at that time. So it's really important that we're not just kind of working on just the things at the national level, which it's great to be doing that as together and having different state coalitions come together and work on things. But it's really important to make sure that as a state, we have our own things, like everything you just mentioned, Desiree, that we're focusing on as well, because that's what people hold really close, is the things that are happening in their neighborhoods, in their backyards, in their places of work. Right.
And I think when we talk about, one of the things that I've noticed to that point is like the PRO Act here in Rhode Island. We have our federal legislation and representatives, like they are all for it, like they're supporting it. There's not as much work going on here. But when you look at a place like Florida, you look at a place like Texas, those are places where some of that work doesn't have to happen. We don't have to focus on that. And also to that point, really talking about local elections, right? I can talk a little bit later about how CLUW really wants to be a forum for local elected officials to come in and talk to their constituents, people who maybe didn't know what a candidate stood for, and give them another venue to connect with voters. I think that that's a place where a small coalition can operate within a state, right? And to really make sure that that representation happens, on that community level. So
that brings me to our next question perfectly, is can you talk about some of the CLUW Rhode Island chapters work that's happening? I know that just recently we had a advocacy training for members, which was awesome, and we'd love to do it again. But tell us a little bit about some of the work that's being done in the past, but also look into the future. What's going to be on the agenda for Rhode Island CLUW? Yeah, so first, a little background. I have not been president, as you all know. I have not been president for very long. I became president in 2020 after our esteemed Madam President Maureen Martin had retired, and a lot of the things that attracted me to even join CLUW in the first place was because of her hard work. Right, she really helped pioneer a lot of the feminine hygiene product campaigns, which the CLUW has a campaign called the Help Her Sister Out Period campaign, where we partner with a number of union organizations and a number of offices and facilities and employers to cultivate donations of feminine hygiene products that we then donate to local community organizations around the state. We've worked with the Sojourner House, and we've worked with the Rhode Island Community Food Bank. But I know like there was a big campaign when they did it in the first year in 2018, 2019. I know, Erica, you were part of that, so you could speak a little bit to that. But that really was a campaign that really started with Maureen, and we are continuing that. We had originally planned that it was going to be sort of a seasonal campaign, but I think in looking at the needs that women have had, and young women too, that having that as an ongoing year-long campaign that we really push at certain times, just like you would food donation services, feminine hygiene products we know are a big thing. So, there's that. And from that, there has been legislation
that has helped women access feminine hygiene products more easily. There's the is it the K through 12 bill that was just passed that allows students in the public school systems to get free feminine hygiene products. That's a huge barrier. If it's something that's available in a nurse's office, you don't have to worry about, pursuing it, asking somebody to buy some for you. Can I borrow something? You know that it's available. That's huge. That's huge for young women. That's huge for somebody who feels very uncomfortable about maybe their body, especially when you're going through puberty. And on top of that, there's the feminine hygiene tax, right, Erica? I know that you know more about that than I do, but that is a big thing. If you can talk about that.
Yeah, so in Rhode Island, we're one of a number of states that have just gotten rid of or eliminated the tampon tax, they call it. So the tax on menstrual hygiene products has been eliminated in Rhode Island, which is really awesome because, I mean, feminine hygiene products or menstrual hygiene products are already extremely expensive. I don't have the number exactly off the top of my head, so I don't want to give you a number that I'm trying to remember. But the number is really high. If you think about it, when I'm thinking about buying products, maybe you buy a box or two of products a month, and that's $4.99, $5.99. And that's like when they're on sale, when you get one for buy one, get one free. But really they're like $8.99, $9.99, depending on what you use. It could be lower, it could be higher, depending on what you use. And that's a lot of money when you add it up. If you think about gym memberships that are $10 a month, it's like an additional gym membership or something like that, or even more if you have a family that you're buying multiple products for multiple people. So it's just anything helps. So eliminating that tax is really nice because it's not something that's a luxury. We don't have a choice. We have to buy these menstrual hygiene products every month.
Right. Biological, right.
Yeah. So it's that was really awesome that Rhode Island could join the rest of the states that are doing the right thing. And as Desiree had mentioned, those two pieces of legislation that passed aren't something that CLUW is working specifically on. In the future, it would be really awesome to be able to figure out who those kind of players are who are doing a lot of work around things like legislation like that, so we can figure out how we can be more active and work with them more. But it's definitely true that the Help a Sister Out Period campaign kept people talking about the importance of access and the barriers that there are to menstrual hygiene products for women in the state. So it definitely played a role in helping getting those passed.
Yeah, and normalize the conversation, like you said, right? Like we could talk about it at meetings, we can update people about it. So that's just one. I know we kind of focused on that one, but that's a big thing that we try to champion. Some of the other stuff we do is really some of the union solidarity. So today, for instance, it was canceled, but we were going to go out to support the Teamsters Local 215 with their Johnson Brothers strike. That's been an ongoing strike. It's been several months. We have gone out to their picket line at in Quonset. They have been picketing at a number of liquor stores. We're going to continue to support them. We do call all of our members out and hope that they can make effort to stand in solidarity with those workers. And even if it's just not buying the products, right? Like, I mean, on top of maybe coming out and actually showing your support, but actually making an effort to not support those organizations financially and through your purchasing. During the pandemic, we had a number of issues here in the state of Rhode Island with the nursing home workers. We had rolling rallies. CLUW was out there in our cars with signage, really supporting those workers. And that's work that we continue to do, and we do want to continue to do. As you had mentioned, on top of those things, Erica, as I just mentioned, we do want to continue to have different candidates for elected offices coming in. Earlier this year, we had Nellie Gobert, the Secretary of State, come in and just talk about her role, what it's like to run as a woman in that space, what it's like to be, a mother, be a professional, have some of those constraints that maybe some of your male counterparts don't have, and what you have to do to be successful in that role. We do know that we want to have many of those during the governor's campaign race when that starts heating up. And then on top of it, we do want to continue to have training. So we had the advocacy training. We are hoping to have more on that. One of the things that we'd like to focus on is, some diversity training, things like that, more advocacy training, how to get women more involved. How do you write some kind of testimonial within that space. Are you interested in running for office? How do you do that? I know that we have done that Run As You Are campaign. We've worked with the Women's Fund of Rhode Island on some of those projects in the past. That was, again, not under my tenure, but I know that that was stuff that happened. And, you know, we have an open call to labor. If there's something that you want us to support, if there's an event that you want us to come out to, we're happy to do that. Let us know the time, you know, can we coordinate it? Is it something that we can maybe sponsor a little bit, or just really put the word out on our social media, on just word of mouth through our membership, things like that. So, you know, we are in a transition phase and we do want to grow. The pandemic really knocked a lot of momentum out for some of our work, and we want to try to regain that and continue to grow on top of that.
Yeah.
So for CLUW members specifically, and I guess I can ask this as a new member, a relatively new member, what are some benefits to joining?
Well, first of all, I mean, you get to be represented by me, which is wildly important. No, but I think so one, right, when we start having a lot of fundraisers, you know, you'll have members will be able to attend free of charge, right? Like that's something that we plan on. But also being able to bring your voice to the table. We recognize that in the labor community here in Rhode Island, there are a number of women members, and we want to make sure that they have a voice. And being a member of this organization, coming to our meetings, participating, bringing to light some of the things that are happening in your union that we might not be aware of is very important. And to me, that sense of community, that sense of I belong here, that is invaluable to anybody who is sort of seeking that voice, right? Seeking a place to sort of fit in. And also from a perspective of leadership, right? Like if you're a union member and you're not sure how to get ahead, you might not feel 100% comfortable maybe going to some of your leadership, just because maybe that's the person you are. But you come into our group, we have a plethora of representation from a number of unions, not just maybe the union that you're part of, but maybe someone in healthcare in a different union, or maybe someone in the trades. And having those conversations sort of in that forum does support that. And like I say, we are in the process of transition. One of the things that we do want to do is make our meetings and our events more inclusive. So in the 2021-2022 sort of meeting year, we will be providing dinner for our members, and also if they have children or families that they need to bring. You know, I'm focusing on children just because I'm a mother, but we do know that women have dependents that might be family members, right? Like parents, elderly parents, adult children who maybe have some developmental disabilities. We want to make sure that they feel included as well, because as I keep saying, you know, women make up a large part of the workforce in the state of Rhode Island, in the country, but also in that labor community. And if they don't feel like they have the ability to show up to something, they're not going to, because they can't make their schedule. So that's a long-winded way of saying, like, coming and being part of the community is probably the biggest benefit that I would champion. But again, being able to meet all of us, I think is great, and all of our other members as well. So
yeah, we do have a pretty, for lack of a better word, or maybe this is the best word, a pretty badass group of women at the table. So if you want to be a part of that, that'd be great.
right. Right.
But also, I just want to add to that too, a conversation that we were having, Desiree, you had mentioned a really important message to focus on for the Rhode Island chapter of CLUW. And that's things like the more members that we have at the table, the more community that's represented at the table, that's more voices we have that are represented at the table, more conversations, or more robust, wholesome conversations that we're having, and the more support we have for each other at the table. So the more and more members that we have as we continue to grow, the better the work is going to be that we're doing through the Rhode Island chapter of CLUW. And it's really important. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, when you look at the three of us, we're all members of CLUW, but we're three white women at the table. And when we're sitting in our CLUW meetings, you know, we have to, although we're not in person, when we are back in person, we can look around the room and see who the empty seats, or what the empty seats in the room, and make sure that we are doing our best to include every voice that we can that represents women in labor, and just working women around the state, to make sure that we're, you know, our conversations can't always be the same thing all the time. And if we don't have everyone at the table, or as many people as possible in the room, we may be missing some of those conversations that we should be having. So that's just an an additional call to really members to get out and join your local CLUW. If you're in Rhode Island, join the Rhode Island Coalition or the Rhode Island chapter of CLUW, because the larger we are, the stronger we are, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think that like we're especially tuned into that as women who are like historically sidelined for leadership positions, that we know what happens when when everyone isn't represented in a conversation. We
mhm,
know, because if your voice isn't heard, that just means that like even the smallest things aren't taken into consideration to make your life easier, better, safer, happier.
Right.
absolutely.
So,
And not maliciously either, right? Like that's one of
Yeah.
the things I try to explain to people sometimes when I'm having these conversations. Like, we don't look at this as malicious necessarily. We just look at it as we sometimes understand that we are that particular thing, right? Like, is not thought of. Like, oh, we
Mhm.
didn't realize we needed childcare. Or, oh, if we're having a labor event, having it at 8:30 in the morning, maybe is not the best time for someone who maybe has to drop off the children at school, because school starts at 8:15, and it would be hard to get to downtown Providence to show up for an event, right? So maybe having it at 9 or 9:30 would be a better time if you really wanted to be inclusive of the conversation. So
Yeah,
um
absolutely. And I mean, you just brought me to another point that I know that you briefly mentioned before when you were talking about the benefits of joining CLUW, but some other things that I know that we've talked about as an executive board, but also with other members of CLUW, is making sure that we're making our meetings as accessible as possible. So eliminating any barriers for why other maybe women or other members are unable to join our meetings. So I know that one of the ways that you can join CLUW is to reach out to the Gmail that we have, which is the CLUW, which is spelled CLUW chapter@gmail.com. And you'll reach out directly to Desiree. And if there's something if it's a barrier, or if there's a reason why you haven't been able to join CLUW for as long as you've known about it, or make sure you make those concerns heard, because we talk about all of those things. This is a very common conversation we have at just about every single meeting is, are we going to start having meetings at a different time? Are we going to start being able to offer childcare, or not necessarily, maybe not even offer childcare, but have just a children's station, have
Yeah,
more
very
food
important.
for people to bring
Yeah.
their families. Yeah.
right.
So that's a very common conversation we have at meetings. So make sure you reach out if you have any questions or concerns.
Yeah.
All right. I just mentioned how you can join CLUW for those of you who are watching if you're interested in joining, but I want to end this segment with Desiree, if you have anything to add before we close.
Yeah.
Now's your
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. So, you've talked about joining, and again, I appreciate and thank you for letting me sort of pitch CLUW to your audience. CLUW membership is very affordable. It's not super expensive. It's less than a golf tournament. It's about $75 for the year, $50 for your national membership, and $25 for the chapter. I encourage people, if you are interested and you're unaware whether or not you do already have CLUW members, reach out to me. I'm happy to work with you, and also reach out to your unions. This is a union coalition group. We do have a number of members whose unions do support them and do pay those dues.
Yeah.
We recognize that $75 might not be a ton of money for one person. It might be a lot for another person. And you know what? Being part of this and being able to have your voice at our table does help your union in the long run. And so you can really do that. And you know what? I'm available for those calls as well. So if you tell me I'm really interested in this, and this is something that we can work on together, I'm happy to be that voice. And I have two of the best AFL ladies in the state, Erica and Autumn, to help me out with those calls as well. So I just wanted to sort of pitch that. And yes, definitely email me. The email is cluwrichapter@gmail.com. And again, CLUW is spelled CLUW. And so, yeah, so that's my pitch.
Yeah. So just an additional pitch to not just members interested in joining, but to unions, local unions.
Right.
If you are unsure if you have members who are already a part of CLUW, one, either reach out to that email or reach out to your membership and say, there's this incredible women's organization, the Coalition of Labor Union Women Rhode Island chapter, and you can get involved. And maybe some of the locals will pay for a certain number of their members to join CLUW. That would be incredible. I mean, if you have 3 members or if you have 2 members, it'd be, no, let's say if you have 4 members, it's only $300 a year.
Right.
That is doable. What is that? That's less than a foursome
It's really
at a golf tournament.
It's really true. And you know, to that point, we're happy to do presentations too. Like, I'm happy to go, if you have a membership meeting and you're like, I don't want to pitch this, I don't want to talk about it, I don't know, but I do want to be part of it. Please reach out to me, Erica, you know, whoever you know is somehow connected to CLUW, and we are happy to go and reach out. And that includes women's caucuses. We know currently CLUW works with the Laborers Union Women's Caucus as well as the Teamsters Women's Caucus. We do have connections to those groups, and we are trying to work really affect some work around women's issues with those groups, hopefully you know, over the course of 2022 and you know, beyond. So
All right.
great.
Well, thank you so much for joining Autumn and I, Desiree.
Great, thank
It's
you.
always great to have you on Labor Vision.
Yeah.
All right, for those of you who are watching, you are watching Labor Vision. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on social media. You can catch the segment on our website, which is laborvisionri.org. And thanks again for watching. We hope to see you back here soon.
And you
Have
can
a good-
follow us on Facebook, and we will be posting this segment as well. So
Follow all the social media channels.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
thank you so much. It was great seeing you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.